This is a pair of mugs, aka manly Uggs. It started as a joke project we did with Goral last year around this time to make a pair of Shearling sneakers out of a old military Shearling coat. And after that video posted, people really wanted a real pair. So we went to work over the last year with the goal of making a Shearling sneaker that's built like a boot with the convenience of a sneaker, that has the warmth of a boot with the look of a sneaker, and the longevity of a boot with the comfort of a sneaker. So we're gonna cut these in half and test them and see if we achieved our goal with the mugs. And there's only gonna be 200 of these available, and the first 100 are gonna ship before Christmas. Hopefully you'll get them in time for Christmas. And I'll also put links to Goral's website and their YouTube channel where they do basically what we did with this project, where they take random stuff and try to make sneakers out of it. It's pretty cool. So who is Goral? Well, they started in 1936. The Goral family began handcrafting footwear out of a small workshop near the family home in Poland, and then they eventually moved to England, and now they're based out of Sheffield, and the still family owned by the Goral family, by the third and fourth generation Gorals, Dominic and Bogdan, I believe is how you say his name. I've worked with Dominic for the majority of this project, who was a fourth generation Goral at the Goral factory, which is really cool. And they made a name for themselves making sneakers out of the best materials with the best techniques, and more importantly, they're designed to be resold and recrafted and last as long as humanly possible. And I started working with Goral in 2020 when we reviewed one of their white sneakers for the white sneaker series, and during the white sneaker finale we chose them as the best built sneaker because they just were doing things that nobody else was doing. So after the white sneaker series, we kind of started working with them on a few different concepts to make a sneaker, because I liked the way they did things. I wanted to make a sneaker, but we struggled to find something that was really unique that no one had done before, because I just don't have any interest in doing the same thing over and over and over that everyone's already doing, until we did that mugs video, and people really liked it. And so then at the end of 2021, that's when we started to go to work on this sneaker, and we did a few rounds of prototypes, tried a few different things, and finally ended up with this final design. And so today we're officially launching the mugs, and the concept of this mugs and the guiding light, the North Star that we followed to make this. We wanted to make a warm sneaker with the best and the longest lasting natural materials, with the idea that you shouldn't have to sacrifice style for warmth, and it shouldn't be a pain to stay warm, and you should know exactly what you're spending your hard-earned money on. So now you know what this shoe is. Let's start going through the details and see if we achieved what we were trying to do with the pair of mugs. So let's start with the leather first. So the majority of the shoe, it's made of two different types of leather. We have Shearling and we have Chromexcel. So let's start with the Shearling first. Shearling is a really unique material, and I didn't really have a full appreciation for it until we did that Uggs video last year. But some of the unique characteristics are that it's warmer than duck and goose down. It's lighter than fur in terms of weight. It can also help regulate temperature. The lanolin remains in the wool even after the tanning process and the dyeing process. So you get that natural lubricant that protects the fibers. Shearling is naturally dirt and bacteria resistant, and it doesn't get staticky like a lot of other synthetic fake fur will do. And my favorite benefit of Shearling is that it can absorb up to 30% of its weight in water or moisture before it even feels wet, and it continues to insulate even when it's wet. And so that's why a lot of the high-end hunting gear and outdoor gear, a lot of times they have wool layers, because it's just almost nature's perfect insulation fiber and layer. And the Shearling we chose for this shoe is a 10mm long Shearling, and it's a true Shearling. So this leather you see on the outside is part of the lamb that was used to make the Shearling. It's not like a separate layer that was glued onto a piece of leather. And the thickness of the leather underneath the Shearling is 1.3mm thick, so right in that correct sneaker thickness. And we burned the outside layer of the Shearling just to show you how it reacted, and also we burned the Shearling itself so that you could see how Shearling reacts and how it's self-extinguishing, and you really can't light it on fire. You have to just keep the flame to it to keep it burning. And if you look at the cross-section of the Shearling, you can see that it has the grain pattern, and this is a perfect demonstration of that whole cross-section, because a lot of people assume that smooth portion of the leather is on the inside of the animal and not the outside, when in all reality, that really smooth grain pattern that you associate with that smooth texture leather is right on top of the animal, where the hair goes into the animal, if that makes sense. This Shearling has all the grain. It's not even been touched, because you'd have to remove the hair to bring that grain down. And then the outside bit you see here is that natural suede texture that's lower in the cross section. And so Shearling makes for a really durable material, because you have that protective suede on the outside, you have all the grain, and then you have all the benefits of the Shearling on the inside. And then the other leather that we used is Chromexcel, because there's certain parts of this that we had to use a separate kind of leather. And while we were prototyping this, the guys at Goral made a version of it just like this that had the Shearling and the Chromexcel, because we were trying to match it exactly. And I liked it so much, having the contrast of just a little bit shinier Chromexcel against the more matte finish of the Shearling. I really like that contrast, because the Chromexcel is on the tongue, the lace or the eyelet reinforcement, the back stay, the back pull tab, and the vamp, or like the toe. And if you don't know anything about Chromexcel, it's tanned in the US in Chicago by Horween, probably the most popular and famous tannery in the world. And Chromexcel is up there with the most popular leather because it's over a 100-year recipe. It takes 89 separate steps to make it. It takes 28 working days and utilizes all 5 floors of the Horween facility to make. And I love Chromexcel. It's really saturated. They put tons of oils and conditioners and greases and waxes into it. And so it's a really saturated leather. It's almost wet to the touch. And it is self-conditioning because they pack so much in there. As you wear it, those conditioners slowly work their way to the surface. You still have to condition it on occasion, but not nearly as much as veg tan. And we kept the Chromexcel at 1.5 millimeters thick because there's a lot of spots where it's doubled up. So you end up with a fairly thick, like 2.5 to 3 millimeter thick layer of leather on certain spots, like at the counter and the toe, that's reinforced with the shearling on the inside that I'll show you later. The lining of this shoe is obviously shearling, but one thing that's really cool is the whole shoe is lined with shearling. It's not just like the quarter panels, it's not just the tongue. The whole entire shoe, when your foot is in there, is completely wrapped with shearling, even the insole. And so we wanted to do a couple quick tests. We want to do an ice test. We grabbed 2 bags of ice, threw them in a Vans and the mugs, and let them sit for a while, pulled the bags out. And as you can see, the mugs did insulate it more than the Vans. Not a whole lot, you know, it's clearly less melted than the Vans. But then we also did the rice in a sock in the microwave and then put it in the boot test, where we heated up those bags of rice, threw them in there, put it outside for half an hour, pulled them back in, and then put the little temperature gun on it. And as you can see, the Gorals do insulate significantly better than a pair of Vans. So that tells me that the shearling actually does work, and these boots will keep your feet warmer than a pair of like regular sneakers. Then if we pull this insole out, it's removable, which is nice. You can swap them out, or if you need a different orthotics or more squish, less squish, whatever. And it's backed with a compressed wool layer that's gonna break into the shape of your foot like leather does. But more importantly, if you look in here, you can see that the lasting board is a big slab of vegetable tan leather. And the thickness of this insole is about 2 to 2.5 millimeters thick, so not quite as thick as like a work boot, but still thick enough that it's gonna break into the shape of your foot, and it's gonna absorb your sweat and moisture, and it's extremely durable, which is maybe the most important part of what Goral does, because a brand that promotes resolability and a lifetime repair guarantee, the leather insole is vital. But what Goral has done is they've combined a lot of what people do in the boot world and the high-end dress shoe world, and they've introduced a Blake stitch to their insole. And Goral says that they are the world's first fully resolable Blake stitch trainer, and they're the only sneaker I've ever seen that has a Blake stitch on it. And this is important because as that upper is wrapped underneath, instead of just glue holding it there, there's a stitch line sewing together that insole and the upper. So when you remove this outsole, it's still a solid unit that you really can't screw up. All you have to do is just throw a new outsole on and stitch a new sidewall stitching on. And then if we look at the outsole, this is very similar to what most people see in the style of shoe with a margam outsole, but you can see it's got a little bit deeper tread. It's got a little bit more grippiness to it rather than that really flat margam, but it still maintains that look of the margam with just a little bit more rugged details on the heel and the toe here. We put the durometer tester on. It comes into a 70 Short A, and like I mentioned, it's a cup sole and it's sidewall stitched. So really this shoe is put together with 3 ways of construction that most sneakers will just have one of them. So it's sidewall stitched like a lot of the cup sole sneakers. It's cemented like a lot of like the vulcanized and like the just cemented construction, and it's Blake stitched like boots and dress shoes. So it combines 3 really popular construction styles into one single shoe that makes it that world famous, recraftable, resolable Blake stitch, the thing that Goral's made their name off of. That's the outside details. Let's get this thing cut in half and see what's on the inside, and I'll show you some of the other differences that Goral does. All right, we got it cut in half, so let's see what's inside. So now you can see how that upper wraps underneath the insole and is sewn down and cemented down to that lasting board. See all the stitches there? And you can also see there's a couple extra layers on the inside. You see this yellow layer. This is a wool felt sourced from Germany that fills up that little void. Also helps squeaking, also to just add another layer of insulation and comfort underneath your foot. And then underneath of the Veg-Tan layer, there's a layer that I didn't even know was in the shoe, and it's a really thin layer of fiberboard. And they said they put that in there to give it just a little bit more rigidity, a little more insulation, and it's a little bit better material for that upper that's wrapped underneath to be glued to in a really secure way. And then for the counter, you've got a leather board counter. So now to the big questions. Did we pull it off? Is it built like a boot with the convenience of a sneaker? Well, with the Blake stitch and the leather insole, it's not quite built to the same boot standard, unless you're comparing it against like really cheap boots, and it's honestly better than like the Brunts and like the cheap work boot world. But to me, it's not quite a boot, it's not quite a sneaker, it's right in the middle. What about the warmth of a boot with the look of a sneaker? I think we pulled that one off. You know, there's boots out there that are warmer, but fully shearling lined, and it still maintains the look of the sneaker. And that was a huge thing we were going for. I didn't want to be able to see any shearling if you had these on. I didn't want the look of that like kind of feminine shearling popping out the top, so we did the edge binding in Chromexcel to hide that as much as possible. So I think we pulled it off. Then what about the longevity of a boot with the comfort of a sneaker? I think there's a lot of boots out there that will last half as long as this boot will, and it's because it's resolable and because the Blake stitch, everything, I think it's honestly more resolable than half the boots on the market. And then to the final question of this video, are they worth the money? Because they aren't cheap. And if you look at how the mugs are priced compared to the Gorals, they're about the same price, if not a little bit cheaper than the other Goral offerings. So even though they're made out of more expensive materials, more labor, smaller numbers, a bigger pain for the guys at Goral to make, they're priced around the same price as Goral's other sneakers. And we did that on purpose, because when I was talking to Dominic back and forth over the last few months about how we're gonna price this and what we wanted to do, you know, we could have priced it higher, been justified it pretty easily, but we wanted to keep it around the same price as Goral's other sneakers, because these collabs, you know, we make money off of them, but it's not the big money maker. I love doing these collabs because it's fun to make shoes and boots that no one's ever made before. I love getting to work with these companies and these brands that have been around for 4 generations and 100 years and make something with them. And I love making products with these brands out of the best materials possible to make them last as long as possible, so that when you're investing money in these collabs that we do, that you know where your money's going and you know it's gonna be worth your money. And so when it came to pricing this, we talked about it. We're like, let's keep it around the same price as the rest of the Goral sneakers to make it more accessible as we can, even though it's a fairly expensive shoe. And that means we make less money, but like I said, these are mostly for fun. And so to me, if anything, these are really fairly priced because we dropped it down to the regular Goral pricing. So overall, I think this ended up landing right at that sweet spot between a boot and a sneaker. And the best thing is it still has that classic high top sneaker look with all the bits that make it more like a boot hidden on the inside. So if you were just wearing these, everyone would just be like, oh, he's just wearing a black gum sole pair of sneakers. But little do they know, it's the most comfortable, warm, best built sneaker. And so I think we pulled it off. I love the sneaker. I think it turned out so good. I love the two-toning. I love everything about it. So if you want a pair of these, go check them out via link in the description. And if they're sold out, I'm sorry, but we'll probably revisit this again next year. So sign up for the limited edition email list and let me know what you thought of this shoe, what you might have changed, what you like, what you don't like. And thank you guys for supporting these collabs. It's really, really fun. So I appreciate all your guys' support. See ya.